Hello and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. We're just a day away from USC's 2019 National Signing Day, so we'll be breaking that down, giving you the full recap. We'll also be talking about Clay Helton's press conference that he held on Wednesday. It was the first time we've gotten to talk to Clay Helton in 2019 since all the Brew McCoy madness and the Cliff Kingsbury stuff evolved. So we'll be breaking that down. And we'll take a look at historically how this class ranked and fared against other USC classes. And of course, we'll be taking your questions. I believe we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope.
Looks good.
No live call today. It takes a full operation to do that, and we don't have the full personnel for that today. But we will get back to those live calls. I know that was fun for Ryan and I. Shotgun has yet to experience it, but you will at some point. But guys,
I was going to call in myself, but
you should have.
I got too busy.
You should have. But National Signing Day, we're a day removed. What were your thoughts about the second round of signees?
It's this is not your father's USC Trojan recruiting class. Whatever. It's different, and it's caused a lot of angst from USC fans. USC is just not used to recruiting this way. It's a different look. There are no 5 stars from the 24/7 Sports composite. There's Kyle Ford, who's a 24/7 Sports 5-star, but in the composite, when you put Rivals and ESPN and 24/7 together, he's only a 5-star, I believe, in 24/7 Sports. So no, consensus 5 stars in the class. 18 3-stars in this class. If you go back to 2002, the internet era, those basically when the 24/7 Sports composite started. We had some rankings before that, but the data's a little bit tougher to do. But from 2002 on, USC's never had more than 11 3-stars in a class, and this one they had 18. So it's very, very different look. Rankings wise, it's different. Throughout that time, USC was only out of the top 10 in 17 years once, and that was 13 in the year they had the number 1 class that everyone bailed on. But they still had 4 5-stars in that class, and they still, it was like 4 5-stars and like 8 4-stars or something. They didn't even have a 3-star in that class, so it was ranked 13th, but it was like loaded with high-end talent. So to be 18th and with the potential to be 20th if Puka Nacua, the 4-star wide receiver from Utah, doesn't sign, it's pretty big. Like, this is a pretty different feel for USC fans. You're used to bringing in the 5-star guys and the 4-star guys. That's just what USC does. I'm not saying they always all turn out. I'm not saying USC utilizes them all that well, but that's how they recruit. That's been the DNA of USC. It's not that way right now, Shotgun. This is not that they didn't do that. This looks more like a Washington class from maybe when Chris Peterson first got there or something. Now Washington's got a class ranked ahead of USC. So this is just a different feel for me.
Yeah, definitely a different feel. And, USC did some positive things in this class. They addressed some needs. There were also some big areas where they were not addressed. They addressed the defensive backs, the fact that they had so few actual bodies at all. Now, they had to go and get some 3-star guys. They got some underrated guys. They got some guys that we like, but, just aren't as rated as highly as some of the others. They missed out on some of their biggest targets. Yesterday, they did not close strong like they normally do.
True.
There was no drama at all. And that's also part of the way that this new, the early signing period and the second National Signing Day is evolving. There was a little bit of drama on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, especially in Southern California, there were 18 guys of the top 100 California guys, there were 12 guys that had not signed in the early
12
signing
out of
period.
the top 100.
Yeah,
okay.
Of California had not signed. The only real drama was where Jordan Wilmore ended up after he decommitted from USC. The only other one that was kind of up in the air going into it was CV Nomura, the outside linebacker safety that USC picked up. And there was no drama because when Gerard got there, he looked and saw the placard that said the kid's name and the USC logo on it. And then CV also walked in with a USC shirt on, so no real drama to that one.
No.
So that was the closest thing. That was the only one where USC was really in the mix with anybody in Southern California, at least, that, are they going to get him? Are they not? Now, they were in the running for Inoke Vimahi from Hawaii. He signed with Ohio State. They're in the running for DeJuan Jones from Indianapolis. He signed with Ohio State.
Yeah.
So any of the ones that were really looking at hard, they did not really end up well for USC. Even Hunter Hill, the other offensive lineman, USC, he decided USC gives him a late offer last week. He decided to go to Utah State instead. He stayed at his local school from Orem, Utah. Puka Nakua's high school teammate.
Yes.
So now USC may go 0-2 at Orem as well.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this class and you look at, we essentially established that it's underwhelming by USC standards. What do you pinpoint this to? Is this a one type of issue where it's like it's a 5-7 season, USC closes late, and that doesn't help them in that sense of closing? Or is this a multitude of issues where you don't have the support staff that you need? You end with a bad season. You have a coach that recruits love Clay Helton, but maybe he's a lame duck. What do you point to when you look at the reasons for this class?
I think all those things are true. I think, and there's arguments on the message board all the time. You say, oh, Clemson does this or Alabama does that. Yeah, Alabama recruits the best players. They get the top class. That's the way USC's been recruiting. They always get the top class on the West Coast. They've recruited that way. This wasn't a choice. So to bring in 18 3-stars, this wasn't hey, we're going to change the way we recruit, and we're going to recruit Chris Peterson's motto is OKGs are kind of guys. That's they want to. They don't care about stars, whatever. But now they do. The more he's been there, they're recruiting more stars and things like that. But that's not the way USC does things. They went after all those guys. They went after the 4- and 5-star guys. They had one in school for 2 weeks and lost him. So this was really more about swinging and missing on a lot of guys and then going to your plan B and plan C. So that's not the same thing as targeting 3-star players from the beginning and going, you know what, that's, even though not as many people are recruiting him, we're going to bring that guy in. I think that's a very different thing. So just because it's a bunch of 3-star guys doesn't mean, oh, that's the best. This is really more a lot of plan B guys. I think there's some really good players in there, but don't, mistake for this was a change in philosophy. No, it wasn't a change in philosophy. It was a change in results. And a lot of it, like what you said, Keely, was, there is a lack of a recruiting support staff. And I think people say USC recruits itself. There's a lot of advantages, inherent advantages being at USC that you can recruit to. And even if you screw up a little bit here or there, you can overcome that. That's why, in 17 years, one class out of the top 10, and that was still a class that had 4 5-stars in it. I mean, it's just USC can do this year after year, and through sanctions, through bumbling or whatever. But this was a sort of confluence of missteps all along, with the lack of support staff, with the terrible record, with the coach being on the hot seat, with an offensive coordinator coming in and leaving. I mean, there was just so many bad things that happened that even USC couldn't overcome it. Now, these were avoidable mistakes. These are self-inflicted wounds for the most part. You didn't have to, most of these things didn't have to happen, but putting all those together, that's why we're in uncharted territory, because no matter what, USC still will bring in a couple of 5-stars from local, things like that. And I think it's opening up a bigger problem with, what Pete Carroll did when he took over was put a fence around California. He made it cool for the best players in Southern California to stay on the West Coast. I think it's hurting the entire Pac-12 when USC is down like this. USC is currently 3rd in the Pac-12. Never has happened. They've never been, they were second twice or two or three times. They've always been first. 3 times they were second. They've never been 3rd, and they're almost 4th, really close with Stanford. This is uncharted territory, and I think now it's easier for Clemson or Alabama or Florida State, whoever it is coming in, Ohio State, coming in and getting some of these West Coast guys. So this is a problem that USC, a lot of it's on USC's shoulders, but I think it's hurting the entire conference because of what's going on.
And part of why it's hurting the entire conference, because if USC misses out on Brew McCoy, well, then they're going to get somebody else. So they're missing out. So guys like Stephen Nomura might end up somewhere else normally if USC picks up somebody in place of him, ahead of him. If USC's going out and getting some of these 3-star guys that, maybe would be fringe guys for them before, and that guy might end up at Oregon State or Cal or somewhere else. And then I think it's just pushing down the entire depth of the conference, because Alabama's coming in and cherry picking who they want. Ohio State's coming in and cherry picking who they want. And you're just getting teams from outside coming and cherry picking some of the best guys. And that's leaving, the best, most fertile recruiting portions of the Pac-12 are getting picked over by conferences. And that's because USC and UCLA are both doing so poorly right now, recruiting wise.
UCLA, really bad. They were like echoes from the, their war room from signing day. And, look at, you talked about the top 100 players in California. The top 20 players in California, USC crushes all the time. Like a lot of times having more than half of the top 20 players coming to USC. Only 2 this time. That's never happened. And Texas had 2 of the top 20 players in California. So that's not acceptable. You can't. The way USC recruits in their DNA, it's not to go get 3 stars. It's to get the best and brightest players. That's what sells. They want to go to the NFL. Those are the kind of players USC gets. So this is definitely a shift from that.
Yeah, I mean, of the top players, USC got number 4, Kyle Ford. This is the 24/7 composite top players in California. After that, you look at the teams that got players. Now, Oregon did really well recruiting California, especially Southern California. I think they got 5 of the top 22
5 of the top 20
on the early signing period. So they got Kayvon Thibodeau, who's the top recruit in California. But then you look at it, Texas for Brew McCoy, Jaden Daniels, Arizona State, Michael Wright went to Oregon, Chris Steele, Florida, Henry Tuioto. How do you say his name?
I'm not sure, yeah.
Henry Tuioto went to Tennessee. Zach Charbonnet, Michigan. Joe Nagata from Northern California, but Clemson. Like South Carolina got Helinski. You see UCLA gets 1 guy in the top 20 at number 15, Sean Ryan. Jacob Bandy's Washington. Austin Jones, Stanford. Washington, Oregon. Like you see a bunch of these players are leaving the state.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is there's some Northern California talent there, but a lot of that is Southern California and USC and UCLA just not producing or not doing well on the recruiting, especially with the Southern California kids. And so that allowed some of those northern teams to come down, but also that one little stretch I was talking about where you have Tennessee, Florida, Michigan, South Carolina coming out to USC, out in USC's territory to get a recruit. That doesn't happen. And that's very rare there, and that's kind of the product of what we've seen from USC and UCLA not recruiting well. That other teams from across the country are saying they're not recruiting. If they're not playing well, then they're not going to recruit as well. We can go in there and get some talent where in the past they'd be like, oh, there's no use in us even going out there because, USC is going to lock up most of those guys. I mean, Florida State used to get some guys from California. Every once in a while, Miami might get somebody.
Yeah.
But like Georgia came and gave like 6 or 7, 8 offers a couple weeks ago to 2020 kids. I can't think of the last Georgia player that's from Southern California. It's so rare to see those type of programs come because they have plenty of talent in their area, but they're figuring now, well, a guy like Justin Flo in the 2020 class, he's getting offers from everybody. DJ Uwalele, the quarterback from St. John Bosco, the number 1 quarterback in the country, Clemson probably leads for him right now.
Yeah.
So you're seeing other teams see blood in the water and say, let's go out to Southern California and see if we can pull some guys in.
I didn't even think about that. Well, looking at your rankings, so the top 20 players in California, I believe only 4 are staying in state. 16 of them are going out of state. So 2 for USC, 1 for UCLA, 1 for Stanford, right? That's it. Like everyone
3.
else is leaving.
Or
4 because Stanford.
4, yeah. Drake
yeah.
Jackson.
So the top 20, only 4 are staying in the state of California. Like that's crazy. And you got 4 major universities there.
And a lot, I mean, you got guys like just outside the top 20, Sean Dollars, Jeremiah Cradell, both from modern day. It's not like these are kids from, that grew up a big fan of something. No, these are from the powerhouse programs that USC has good relationships with that are going elsewhere. Jeremiah Cradell is going to Oklahoma. Sean Dollars going to Oregon. You've seen those guys from those big programs that usually, do really well. I mean, you look at Calabasas. Their head coach, Chris Claiborne, All-American linebacker at USC. Curtis Conway is their wide receivers coach, All-American at USC. And he said in a recent LA Times article, I believe it was, that my guys really just aren't that interested in USC right now. And he's like, he and Curtis are like trying to tell them, they explain, like, USC is great. I love my time there. But they're not going to force guys to go anywhere, but they're trying to tell them the merits of USC, and they're just not interested. Yeah. And part of it, like Michael Pittman's younger brother, no interest in USC. He committed to Oregon.
Yeah,
this doesn't sound very positive right now. So
yeah, we took a nosedive off the negativity cliff. But
sorry, guys.
As far as addressing needs, Clay Helton said in the second wave of signees that they wanted to address the major issues at the defensive back depth. They signed arguably 5, 6, if you want to add Namora, and 6 DBs. Credit to Greg Burns and company for coming in and filling that depth. What did you guys see from those specific signees?
It's interesting when Clay Helton was talking about it. Like 7 defensive backs are off the the roster, and there was a lot of attrition. There was probably maybe one of the deepest positions going in, and you get some guys transferring. There was a whole bunch of guys graduating. They needed some bodies there, and I don't think there was very strong on the West Coast as far as there was a bunch of 4 or 5-star guys you could swing and miss that. They swung and missed at Chris Steele, who was a commit for a while, and he had a video and everything, and he's no longer going to USC. But there wasn't a whole lot of Chris Steeles out there, so it sort of made Chris Steele more important, I guess. But there's some guys that I think they missed on early, like Cradell, or and now you're the only way you can do it is filling in with some 3-star guys. But we saw there's some good ones in there that I just didn't watch.
Yeah, there's guys out there that they never really pursued. Michael Wright, who's was one of the top 20 overall recruits.
I'm trying to be more positive.
That went to Oregon. They never really recruited him. Trent McDuffie, they recruited late, but and I talked to him, I think late in the season. He was like, "Oh, I know USC kind of steps up the recruitment later," but he ends up going to Washington. There's guys out there that they didn't really go after until it was too late, and I think that played into it. A big part for USC is, their normal routine under Clay Helton has been we'll focus on the season during the season, and then we'll focus on recruiting after the season. It didn't work out this year. No. When you go 5-7, that doesn't, you can't hang around, and then suddenly jump in the conversation on those guys. And I think it really hurt them this year, especially with the early signing period. Now they had basically 2 to 3 weeks to go out and try to talk these kids into coming to USC after they haven't really been pushing hard for a bunch of them throughout the season and stuff.
I think with Greg Burns there, hopefully that will help the team, because the way they were recruiting defensive backs was baffling. 2 years in a row, they kind of closed strong on signing day with a couple of safeties and then a couple of corners last year, but like Bubba Bolden and Isaiah Polamau, and they had kind of stopped recruiting him for a while, and they got him late, and same thing with Elijah Griffin and Isaac Taylor Stewart, finished really strong. So the defensive back classes ended up being pretty good, but it was really hit or miss coming into it. This year there was no recovery. It was the same sort of thing, but there was no getting the 2, 4, and 5-star guys or whatever in the last day. It just wasn't available, and for reasons you said. So their approach to defensive back recruiting was off. But they weren't really burned by it because they still got really good classes. This year, I think you kind of got burned, and you had to go and find a bunch of Plan B and Plan C guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that because of how you played on the field, it's much easier when you win the Rose Bowl in a dramatic fashion. Everyone watches that. And you win the Pac-12, you can use that as a recruiting tool. Say, hey, we just need you to push us over the top. But when you go 5-7, people start looking at it and they start examining things more. You start hearing more from the fans about this is an issue or that's an issue. You start seeing more issues with the program that may have been overlooked when you say, well, Pac-12 championship, we just need you to take us that next level.
Right.
So I think that the way they recruited can work.
Yeah.
When you do really well.
Worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it works much better if you just go out and recruit the entire year. I know it makes it that much more difficult, but that's one of the things, I wrote about this a while back at the early signing period, that all the players, Greg Biggins said, if you ask any player who's recruiting you hardest, almost everyone will say Oregon, because they go all out trying to recruit, and you saw that it paid off for them.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is that USC stunk this year on the field, so that opened things up a little bit for them, but they were still going out, and they got some guys the year before, Penei Sewell, that USC was really hard after. So I think if you're going to go out and recruit, I think that it would definitely help the future classes if they're actually going out and recruiting full time instead of we'll take care of that at a certain point of the year. We'll take care of this at a certain point of the year. Recruiting is a never ending thing.
Yes,
as you can tell from USCFootball.com and the fact that we always have recruiting news up every week. It's a never ending thing.
True. Yeah. We have multiple questions about Puka Nacua, a 4-star wide receiver who is technically a USC commit, but he did not put pen to paper yesterday. It sounds like if that's the case, he's leaning away from USC. The latest update we've got is that he's going to make a decision, his mom says, on Friday. No real news as far as where he's leaning. If USC does not end up with Puka, how much of a loss is that for the Trojans?
It's pretty big. I mean, he'd be the 3rd highest ranked player in this class right now if he ends up signing with USC. And like we said, Blair Angulo's been all over this for 24/7 Sports. We were all there. Shotgun and I both talked to him out in Hawaii at the Polynesian Bowl. And, he said all the right things, but there was definitely, questions about everything. And, now you hear maybe it's Washington or Oregon or even staying home in state to Utah, or he took a late visit to UCLA. So I think USC's got some receivers, even with some guys entering the transfer portal, but he's one of those dudes that just like, if you saw the Polynesian Bowl, the touchdown catch he had, he's just a special player, maybe underrated as a high 4-star, but he, like I said, he's the 3rd highest ranked player in the class. If USC loses him, which we expect, the Trojans would drop down to number 20 in the rankings, so even lower than 18. And they would still barely stay above Stanford. So in the Pac-12, it's Oregon, Washington, USC, and Stanford. But they'd be less than a point in the point system ahead of Stanford. So this is, obviously uncharted territory. But to me, he would be a big loss, and it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards right now.
Yeah, I last heard from Blair and Gulo that Oregon maybe is the front runner right now. But like I said, there's still just has to make a decision. I talked to him at the Polynesian Bowl about how he would kind of go about, making this decision. He said he wished that he could have all 3 of his visits immediately, right after the Polynesian Bowl. That way he would have time instead of, he said, I don't want to wake up on National Signing Day and then, try to make a decision then. And that's kind of what happened because he came back from the UCLA visit, gets back and he has a couple days to kind of go over it. So they wanted a little bit more time as a family to kind of go over the decision and figure out what exactly they wanted out of it, the college program he's going to join. So that's what's taking the extra time, which I would advise any player as talented as him, take as much time as you need until you come to with a complete decision. You don't want to rush anything and Brew McCoy it. Basically. So, I think that right now it looks like USC is kind of out of the mix unless he makes a phone call to them. It's supposed to be a dead period, I believe. So I think he would have to
initiate contact. I think.
Yeah, he would have to initiate the contact. So right now I think USC's out of it unless he calls and wants to get one final pitch and they can say something that changes his mind.
Yeah, remember signing day is not the only day; it's just the first day. So the early signing period is a period of 3 days you can sign. But when signing day hits, it's like then you can sign after that too.
Yeah. So we have a lot of questions about recruiting, and I want to get to those questions soon. But before we get into those, Clay Helton's press conference.
Oh, yeah.
First time we've talked to him since all the drama happened. We're just less than 4 weeks away from spring camp. Clay said that part of the reason why it took so long to get an offensive coordinator is because he wanted to not rush the decision, interview multiple people. He said Graham and him pretty much hit it off right away. He also confirmed that with the new coordinator, you're going to have all positions open, including quarterback. So that's something to watch for in spring. Anything else kind of stand out to you guys about that press conference?
Yeah, I mean, he gave us like the spring football dates. I think there was a lot of stuff that was in the catching up with Clay Helton email that I think we talked about on the last show or 2 shows ago. I guess it was 2 shows ago now. You kind of knew that. Look, when they put out all those talking points, that's like, okay, these are what the talking points are going to be. Yeah. And you heard him say a lot of the same sort of things. There's some of the cliches he used. I asked him about Brew McCoy, fully expecting him to basically say it was a personal thing. That's exactly what they put in the email, and he did. We did find out that he's an initial counter. He's scholarship counted coming to USC, but they'll get it back in the fall essentially because they can use it as one of the early counters. But just even though he enrolled at USC for 2 weeks and transferred out, he still was an initial counter there. But his favorite word was garner. He used that very many times. There was a lot of situational mastery too. But it's him focusing on fundamentals and techniques seemed to be what that's what he wanted to do. They sort of switched away. We even saw this earlier at the early signing period from making all these changes like what Lynn Swann was saying about culture and scheme and discipline to, hey, we lost some close games and they were because of small mistakes. So I'm gonna focus on discipline and technique, and that's gonna fix a lot of the problems. Which I don't buy that. The thing I buy is Graham Harrell can fix a lot of the problems because they're not going to be the 90th scoring offense with that kind of talent with someone as competent as Graham Harrell running it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that if they can make in-game adjustments on the offensive side, the offense will take off and look a lot better next season. Clay said that their 4 close losses are directly attributed to penalties and turnovers. So he's going to focus on that. He said he's got to step away from X's and O's to focus on the situational mastery.
That's a good
move. He's not going to touch the offense. It's going to be Graham Harrell's offense. He's going to check in on the offense like he does the defense and special teams instead of being involved necessarily in the overall game planning or the specifics of the game planning. Excuse me. So I think that's probably a positive for the team if he can step back and pinpoint things they need to work on and actually work on them. That was one thing that I was really impressed with Steve Sarkisian. The time he was at USC, was that when Steve Sarkisian during the week would say, we got to fix this right here. The next game they would fix whatever that one thing was. He was like, we got to do better in the run blocking game. The next game, the run blocking was really good or whatever. So he would focus on one thing, and they would correct those things. Now, ideally, you don't have to correct something every week.
Right.
But if you can do that, that shows that you can upgrade the team as the season progresses, and the team can get better and better. And that's what you want out of a team. But USC, it seems like it's the same things over and over and over. So that's what Clay Helton's going to try to step back and focus on, the discipline with the penalties and stuff, the turnovers. He said they're going to do strip drills every day or whatever it is. He talked about how they got to get back to they got to work on their fundamentals and their technique. I want to see just no competition periods at all, no 7-on-7. No, I want to see a full practice where it's just the basics. All the fundamentals, give them the pee-wee practice if you have to focus on all those things. But if you're going to say it, do it. I mean, that's the problem with USC, and the issue that we keep running into is, well, we got to change the culture, we got to change the personnel, the coach, all these things that Lynn Swann says, and then you make a couple of changes, but you don't really change all those things. Yeah. If you're going to say stuff, go do it.
Yeah. I think Dan asked about changing practices and stuff. So we did get some information where they're going to go full speed when they're doing team stuff. So, I mean, sometimes it's sort of walkthrough-y and they're, doing that. When you have full pads, they'll have officials out there. So I think some changes, but and some of the fans will get on. It's like, you got to ask them tougher questions. Like, we ask these things and you're just not always getting like the best answers. But there wasn't Clay didn't come out and say, Graham's going to run as far as the practices and stuff goes, there are going to be some changes to it. Well, I'm curious to see once we get in there. Maybe he's not saying everything that's going to be changed, but curious what it looks like. I think they need to change the way they practice a lot, like you said. But I'm not sure if they will. But and we asked him about it and didn't really get like a straight answer, I guess.
Yeah, Hugo wanted to let you know. I'm sorry, guys, but I have to call you guys out. Why don't you ask Helton the questions you want to ask? But on the show, you guys are very brave. Man up! Speak for us.
We ask the questions. So here's the thing. This is on the Peristyle a lot too. This is not, I think I've used this before, like this is not a few good men. It's not going to be Tom Cruise getting up there and getting, the general to say, you can't handle the truth. There's not like some gotcha moment. We could ask the perfect question and we can yell at him and try to make him, no, why aren't you doing this at practice? Like, that's just not how it works. You ask the question. You could maybe do a follow-up if he's not giving you the right answer. But you can't force him to say, we know he has his talking points, and you know what you can get away with, what you can ask, and what so you try. We've tried a lot, and it's up that you put the ball out there, but you can't make him catch it. He's just going to do it if he wants to or not. But we get a lot of fans that are like that. It's not our job to fix the football program. We want to know the answers to those questions too, but we can't force him to answer them. And if we know, we ask this, and if we only you don't get a lot of opportunities, so you want to ask what's important to you. I asked about the Brew McCoy stuff. I could have probably picked something else, but that's something that was interesting to me at the time. So that's kind of what you do.
Yep. Also, a little bit of newsy stuff. Clay Helton said that Stephen Carr is a full participant in winter workouts, which is positive news for him. Daniel Amadabebe, on the other hand, is only doing individual workouts, so more of the same from him. Basically, do you expect anything from Daniel Amadabebe going forward? It doesn't sound like it as of now.
Well, his brother's in the transfer portal. He hasn't played in forever. I'm assuming you're not going to see him play again. When that first year for Sam Darnold, he was a weapon, and It's just never been the same since. So no, I'm not. If I had to bet, no, I'm not betting you're going to see much of him.
Unfortunately, not.
Yeah.
Would love to see him because he creates a different dynamic in that offense. The tight ends. Chris and I wrote about, kind of 10 numbers from Pro Football Focus to kind of explain the season. And one of the things I wrote about was the 3 tight ends were the 3 worst rated players on the team.
Wow.
On offense or defense, so that tells you how the position really struggled without him last year. Yeah. Even 2 years ago when he came back from the injury and played some in the second half of the season, he was still better rated than any of the guys were last year. So it's unfortunate because you saw how much potential he had there. He looks like an NFL tight end, a guy that can create mismatch problems like you see with some of the tight ends in the NFL right now. To lose him has been big because that's taken away part of the middle of the field. JT Daniels, if he gets a tight end that he can really trust over the middle of the field, I think that would really help him. You've seen how much he likes to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the middle of the field. I think if you get him back, that'd be a big weapon for USC, but you just don't feel like it's going to happen because we've seen no real progress from him. Even when it seems like he may come back, and that's one of the things we asked Clay Helton, several times, and there's still no real answer there.
Yeah.
About that one. So it's unfortunate that he hasn't been able to come back. Clay Helton said he's doing workouts, but he's doing individual stuff while the rest of the team works out together. So it doesn't look like it right now.
I'm going to go do a Facebook question. Bob says, do we have a strength and conditioning coach as of yet? Any news on one?
I mean, there's a temporary one, but there's still a search going on. So as of now, I mean, it could potentially be, what's his name? Britain.
Keith Belton.
Keith Belton. Belton?
Thump.
Yeah.
Thump Belton.
They call him Thump.
That's his name.
Very popular among the players. I think they would like him to be the strength coach. He's a very important, whoever the strength coach is very important because you see the players more than anybody. But I don't know if you necessarily want to pick the coach that sees the players more than anybody if you want to pick the guy that the players want. So I think this is an important hire for Clay Helton. Thump might be really good. I'm no strength and conditioning coach expert. But yeah, I think it's an important hire. But they're going through workouts now, so he's coaching them. So that might change. I mean, if you hire someone in 2 weeks before spring football that has a completely different philosophy, I don't know. What you do at that point, like your winter work. I mean, they changed it. They said they made some changes in winter workouts, like it's all for one. Like if one guy screws up, everybody screws up and stuff like that. But you hire somebody from the outside, they're going to run their own system. So you're probably going to be changing everything, like a week or two before spring football. So we don't know at this point, but maybe it'll just be Thump.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard no new developments on that besides the fact that he is leading those workouts currently. So as of now, he's in charge.
Yeah.
We have a question on YouTube from Jesse Garcia. He says, if the knock on Helton and this coaching staff was their failure to coach up 4- and 5-star talent, what can we possibly expect with 3-star kids whose talent alone won't be enough to get them by?
I mean, I guess there could be some truth to that. It's funny. There's other people that say, well, they weren't good with 4- and 5-star players. That's why the 3 stars are going to work. And it's like, I'm like, I'd rather, the people are like, well, 3 stars care more. They're going to work harder. I'm like, you just can't make like blanket statements like that.
Some coaches do better with less talented players than with more talented players because a lot of times more talented players come with a little bit of ego. So some coaches do. Well, this coaching staff, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think you want to be a team that is full of 3 stars. You want to have talent. But sometimes it works better for some coaches. Some coaches can reach players a little bit better when there's not an ego.
Yeah. Versus
some coaches are really good. A guy like Steve Kerr is a mastermind at allowing egos and getting egos to mesh. I think that's one of the biggest things to being a coach in the NBA is getting all your players to work together. I think that can be very difficult. But I think some coaches are really good at those type of things, whereas some coaches are just straight X's and O's and can't really deal with that type of thing.
Yeah. Phil Jackson, he was able to, Jordan and Pippen in Chicago, Shaq and Kobe in LA. But that's the way LA's worked. Like USC's worked that way. Like USC's been the bunch of ego team. That's the DNA of the squad. So I don't know, just because a player's coming in as a 3-star, if you don't have some of that swagger and that kind of attitude, because that's one of the attractive, things about USC. We'll see.
Jasper Smith on YouTube wants to know, is USC in the hunt for any offensive line transfers in the portal? Now, Clay Helton made it sound like the door is still open for transfers, possibly.
Yeah, there should be a couple spots open. I think there was it 4 or 5 that could count backwards? Is that
4?
4 that could count backwards. Now, one of them's used because of Brew McCoy. So I think, if USC's at 26, you say one of them's 27. I think you could have gone up to 29. So I think you could still bring in a couple of bodies. I haven't studied the transfer portal. It's been a lot more of USC guys going in and none really coming out. But that's going to be part of the evaluation process too. He mentioned Stevie Tuikolovatu. I think we had a podcast question this week from Curtis in Moreno Valley talking to Dan, like, hey, remember Stevie? Yeah, if you get the right transfer, it can be a super impact type of player, but nothing I've heard of that anyone particular that they're looking at.
Yeah, I think that you're definitely going to look, though, because now it's more point and click. You can see who's in there. You can try to see, positions you need. I think USC is going to be looking through there, looking for offensive linemen because they didn't really get an immediate impact guy on the offensive line. I think Jason Rodriguez can be really good later in his career, but I think he needs to work on his fundamentals so that he can use his body correctly and be a solid left tackle potentially in the future. But I don't think he's ready to step in immediately. I don't think you're going to see Gino Quinones step in immediately. I don't think you're going to see that with Levi. So I don't think you really got anything that's an immediate impact guy in this recruiting class. So that means you're going to be replacing 3 senior starters on that offensive line and a key reserve in Jordan Austin, who could kind of play 3 or 4 different positions for you. So I think that you're basically going to be left with what you got from last year minus 3 starters.
Yeah.
So if somebody goes down, you're going to be in a world of trouble. So I think you go and you look and see if you can find somebody, especially if you can get a grad transfer that can come in right away and compete for a spot to start.
Yeah, SC Kenji on Periscope was like, can you address only signing 2 offensive linemen? So actually, it ended up being 3 because you mentioned Gio Quinones. He's played both. He actually played defensive line at the Polynesian Bowl, but the plan is for him to play offensive line at USC. But like Shotgun said, I don't expect any of those guys to come in and contribute right away. But only 3, only 2, 2.5 or 3, whatever. What do you think about that, Shotgun?
I mean, there's some guys out there. USC wanted more than 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were in it for Inoke Vimahi. They were in it for DeJuan Jones until the very end. Both of those guys end up going to Ohio State. They would love to get possibly both of those guys potentially, but it didn't happen.
They wanted Sean Ryan badly, and it's the one good recruit UCLA got was Sean Ryan, the one USC wanted. It was weird.
And there's from their high school. There are currently from the high school rankings. There are currently 1, 2, 3 offensive linemen that are in the portal. There were 4 stars in high school.
Okay.
The rest of them are 3 stars. Now, some of the guys could have gotten better. A couple of the guys have been giving transfer grades of 4 stars. There's a guy from Illinois, Larry Boyd, Parker Braun from Georgia Tech. I remember him being really good. So those guys are both 4 stars as transfers because we've now in the transfer portal on 24/7 Sports, we're giving you not only their high school rating, but now giving you a college rating as well, what they currently are. So there's a couple of 4 stars out there. If USC could get one of those guys in to come in and compete immediately, that'd be great. A guy like Parker Braun, who started for a couple of years for Georgia Tech, if I remember correctly. Don't hold me on that one. But he is an immediately eligible guy. If you can get a guy like that to come in and compete for a spot, I think that'd be great because that puts even more onus on the guys that are there to go out there and perform this spring to show what they're worth, knowing that the guy's coming in and could be taking their spot.
Yeah. Make sure you check that out. Just Google transfer portal. If you Google transfer portal, the 24/7 thing will probably come up, but it's you can just only put USC guys in there. It's a database they just put together fairly quickly, I guess. They put the engineering team on it, realizing how important something like this was going to be. So it's pretty cool feature up there on 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, so the cool thing is there are now some you can sort the sortable variables, so you can go by their eligibility if they have to sit out or if they're immediately eligible. You can go by position, you can go by their status, whether they're committed or uncommitted still. So it's really cool. And if you're a coach, I don't know exactly how the NCAA one, how sortable it is, but as a coach, they might be coming to the 24/7 one looking too and going, well, let me see what's out there right now. Click and, okay, eligible immediately. Let's see who I can bring in.
Yeah.
And you're just checking it out, and then you start the recruiting process after that.
Yeah, for the transfer, if you don't know how the transfer portal works, all the coaches will have access to it. But I don't know. I haven't seen it from a coach's point of view. I don't know what if there is a lot more control to the database. So they might be using the 24/7 Sports one to so basically, yeah, we hear about 24/7 Sports hears about it, like someone goes in or someone goes out. Then we update our own database. But it's a pretty cool feature.
So we have a question on YouTube from YPO Boy. He says, out of the 5 USC players invited to this year's NFL Combine, who do you think will most raise their draft stock? And the 5 who were invited were Chuma Edoga, Marvell Tell, Porter Gustin, Iman Marshall, and Cam Smith.
I think I'm going to go between either Iman Marshall or Chuma Edoga. I think they both had good showings at the Senior Bowl, and I think measurables wise, like to have a big corner like that, like he'll do some good things. And I think Chuma will show some good, do some good footwork drills and things. I think they'll probably do the best. Like a guy like Cam Smith is more of like, I don't think he's going to like blow your numbers away and stuff. Porter, I don't know how healthy he's going to be, like how much he can do. Marvell Tell could do it too, but I would probably go between Marshall and Chuma. What do you think?
I think every time that NFL scouts see Chuma Edoga in person, he bumps his stock up.
Yeah.
When you look at the tape, you kind of go, when he's good, he's really good, and when he's not really trying, there can be issues. But he was really good at the Senior Bowl during that. But I think Marvell Tell, I think he he shines when it comes to measurables. He's 6'4" safety. He can run fast. If he can bench a little bit, I think he covers so much ground with his length and stuff. I think his wingspan is gonna be a terrific number as well. I think he's a guy that is favored in the combine. Like his numbers will probably really shine in that, whereas some other guys, maybe not. Porter Gustin is an interesting one. He is a freak of nature, but how healthy is he? Can he really boost his stock? If he's healthy, I think he could be. I know he's been working out and stuff, but
I want to see how many. I just want to see what he benches. Like how many times can he put up 225? It's
every time you can put it up.
Is it like, does he ever stop? Does he just keep going? I don't know.
Jackson Wilkerson says, I love the show and watch regularly, but can we have a segment where we just talk about positive things?
That's a good point, Jackson. It's hard.
Here's a positive note. I think it's encouraging that all positions are open for grabs in spring. I think having a new offensive coordinator, having someone that other players want to impress and get their name on the board is helpful to raise everyone's competition level. So I think that's a good thing going forward.
Yeah, that was the big question too, and that was answered with Cliff Kingsbury about quarterback competition. I'm glad that's still open there. And Clay started with saying, like, anytime you bring in a guy with a different system, he kind of didn't. He just sort of said it's always open, but yeah, it's like basically yes. So for those of you that think Jack Sears should be the starter, he'll be out there practicing, competing for a spot. He'll be, and Kevon Slovis will be out there, and Matt Fink and JT Daniels. My feeling is JT just will win it. He's always looked better in practice. Maybe the system, whatever the system they were running before, he just did that better. Maybe Jack Sears does the air raid type of stuff better. I don't know. We'll see. But my gut says it'll still be JT Daniels. But I certainly think it's positive that it's open.
If you wanted a fully positive thing, if you just change the name on the jerseys to like Washington State or Arizona, then this would be positive. But when your expectations are what USC's have been when you were a national program, then there's this past season does not lend to positive offseason talk.
Yeah.
The positives are that I think the offense is going to be really good under Graham Harrell. From the little bit of film I've watched, I haven't got a ton of time to watch his stuff yet, like I did Cliff Kingsbury's, but it looks really good. And if he can make in-game adjustments, the offense will take off compared to last year. That was the thing. The offense was good at times, but then the first couple drives might be really good. You get 10 points out of it. Good start for the game, or maybe you're up 13-3 on Utah or 13-0 on Texas, and then everything falls apart because you're not making those in-game adjustments as well as you should be. But I think if Graham Harrell, from all the things we've heard, all the positives we've heard about the hire, and that he is a very good young offensive mind, then I think this offense can take off and they'll score at least 7 more points a game. If you do that, you win the 4 games, so suddenly you're at least at 9-3. And then if you're scoring more points, give a little defense a little bit more rest. There's so many factors that play into it, but I think the offense going forward is going to be much better than it was last year. I think JT will excel in the system if he wins the job. I think that's much closer to what he ran in high school. He was able to move around pieces like a chessboard, in high school, and that was what impressed me the most of him. And if you can get the ball out quickly and you can keep him from getting beat up like he did early in the season last year, I think his confidence will only grow as a quarterback as well.
I'll give you one more positive. Cal Ford's one of my favorite players, recruits-wise. At the opening, the dude caught like 18 touchdowns in 2 days of 7-on-7. It was ridiculous. Like, he was just crushing it. I know he's coming off the knee injury and stuff, but he's someone. Now, I love Brew McCoy. I love Puka Nacua, but Cal Ford was probably my favorite of those 3, even though he wasn't the highest ranked. So I think he's someone who's going to be really special for USC.
So then the question comes from Christopher earlier. Is Kyle going to end up being better than Brew?
I mean, a lot of people tell me Brew could have been, an All-American, rush end or whatever too. So there's more versatility, I think, with Brew, and I'm curious what Tom Herman does with him down in Texas. But receiver-wise, like Kyle Ford, I think Clay Helton said he reminds him of Juju. I could see that.
He said that about Brew too.
Yeah, I guess
he likes any physical receiver to be like Juju.
Yeah, but they're both, physical receivers. But man, that weekend down there, like his team wasn't all that great, and he just kept touchdown after touchdown. It was crazy. Not easy at 7-on-7 to do that. I know it's 7-on-7, but he just stood out.
I think I like Brew more because if I was a college coach and had him, I'm putting him in a receiver, and he's coming in on third downs to rush the quarterback. So that extra bonus, I think they're both very comparable receivers. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Brew at the opening to really compare them in that setting. But I think you saw from the Trinity League play, they both dominated defenses. So I think they both can go up and get passes. I would say that Kyle probably runs better routes than Brew does at this point, but that's only something that's going to get better for Brew if he is fully focused on being a receiver. So I think they're comparable in that essence. But if I could put Brew McCoy on the edge on third downs, give me third longs a package with him in there, and to rush the passer, I think that puts him over the top, and that's what I would do.
Yeah. Brew was kind of banged up a lot of his high school career, right? Like, wasn't like JT senior year, wasn't Brew not always available?
He was injured a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Kyle got, blew out the knee, but that happens. So we'll see. We don't know if he's going to be back for fall camp. Like, that would probably be unlikely, but his potential he could come back during the season. But
he's saying that he's going to be back. So usually an ACL injury is somewhere between a 10 to 12 month thing, maybe a 9 month if you return really well. Clay Helton was talking about him yesterday, said he expects him to be back around the fall, at the end of fall camp, and then they'll see where his progress is. He also said that they're going to treat it similar as they did Solomon Tuliaupupu last year, where they were expecting him back by the end of fall camp. It never really happened. No. Now, I'm excited to see him. That's going to be a freshman next year. That's the one we've kind of forgotten about. Yeah. But he's going to finally be out there in pads and hitting people, so that should be fun.
The one cool thing when you recruit a bunch of 5-star guys, and sometimes they don't, you write redshirt a Jay Tufele or a Tyler Vaughns or a Solomon Tuliaupupu, and then you kind of like forget about them because they're a 5-star guy that comes in and didn't do anything right away. But then, like once they're redshirt freshman year, they can do a lot of good things. And I think you might see Kyle Ford with that. USC didn't really lose any of the top receivers. Now they're going to play more of them because it's a more of an air raid system. But I think you could redshirt Kyle Ford. You don't need him to be on the field, I think, right away. And then he might have a similar freshman season to like a Tyler Vaughns.
We have a question on Facebook from Jesse who says, any predictions for USC starting center?
We get this. We get this a lot for some reason.
I think there was a lot of focus on the center this past season because of some snap issues. I mean, you have to say that Brett Nealon is the front runner since he actually played a game there last year. I think that I really like Justin Dedich coming out of high school. He's feisty out there. He's a guy that you'll see blocking someone still 8 yards down the field or something on a run play that's to the other side of him. He gets after it. So I think it'll be a legit competition there. I think that it probably, if you're doing more outside zone stuff like they previously were doing, I think that fits Dedich a little bit more. I think he's a little bit more mobile than Nealon, but we'll see how they try to attack with the running game in the system with Graham Harrell.
Yeah, and one of Dedich might be a little bit better in the kind of, and Tim Drevno has to adjust to this too because it's going to be a different system. But Clay Helton actually said that he felt like a lot of what their blocking schemes were like would fit what Graham Harrell wants for his. So he was making it sound like what Tim Drevno does and what USC had done previously is pretty similar to what Graham's going to be doing coming in. So maybe he was trying to, just assure the fans that like, hey, just because you didn't get an air raid offensive line coach, this is going to work out all right. And Jesse, by the way, cute little baby in your Facebook picture.
It's true. Very cute. Right. We're all about the babies here on Tunnel Vision. Eric says, can you, maybe not shotgun.
None of us here have any children, so.
Right, that's true. But you're saying not a cute baby? Is that what you, no.
I'm not saying that. I always try to start something.
Eric says, can you compare this year's DB class to last year's? Does 8 DBs make up for lack of stars?
I mean, the DB classes the last 2 years I thought been really good, right? Like you're bringing it was some top talent that could play right away. I don't know if there's a lot of play right away guys in this group.
They're going to compete right away, that's for sure.
But they kind of need to play right away, guys. And it's going to depend on the last couple of classes. Like, you're going to see all those guys. Well, Bubba Boland's gone, but Isaiah Polomau is going to have to play a lot, right? And, probably Isaac Taylor Stewart and Elijah Griffin for sure. And I like the other classes, but I think, but you have more guys here, so one or two of them. Oh, and Talanoa Hufanga, holy crap, did not even mention him.
Chase Williams.
Yeah.
Last year's class is much better.
Yeah, this is a lot better, but there's more numbers to this, and you could have a few of these guys pan out, but I don't think it's gonna. Yeah, compared to those.
Part of the issue with this class is you don't have that immediate impact guy because unless a guy like Jalen Watson, JUCO player, is able to step in right away, because probably your best DB in this class, Max Williams, is coming off an ACL injury.
Right.
So I think he's a playmaker. He was dynamic for Sarah as a punt returner as well. I think he could play right away potentially if he was healthy. That'll be a question mark.
Can I interrupt you really quick? Kenny says, do you think Max Williams could have been a 5-star guy if he hadn't injured his knee?
I don't know because of his size.
Yeah, he wasn't the biggest guy.
And the rankings now have been more towards projections about, they now want the 24/7 top 32 guys to be NFL draft picks.
What is he in the state? Was he a top 20 in the state or no?
No, he was in between 20 and 30.
Okay.
So I think Britton Allen is a guy we got to see. He might be a guy that could come in and play right away.
Yeah.
From what we've seen on tape, I think that if he comes in early, I think he comes in early. Yeah, he's enrolled already, so he'll be in the spring. I think he'll have an opportunity. The thing is, there's going to be so few bodies during spring practice that a guy like that, as he stays healthy throughout the entire spring practice, he's got a leg up on everybody.
Yeah.
Because Talanoa Hufanga will probably be back. He should be back from his collarbone injury, but Isaiah Polomau, Greg Johnson, Elijah Griffin's a question mark. Those guys, I think all three had shoulder surgery. I'm not sure about Elijah Griffin. I know he had some kind of surgery on his upper body. But those three guys are all injured. Isaac Taylor Stewart, is he back 100% from the ankle injury? You're looking at for bodies out there right now, and that's going to be in the spring. Yeah. You're going to have Dominic Davis, Isaac Taylor Stewart, Chase Williams, and C.J. Pollard, and maybe Talanoa Hufanga. Is that 5 guys?
Yeah, not a lot.
That's a lineup. That's it. There's no second string. You're gonna get the guys, like Jordan McMillan, the walk-ons are gonna get plenty of time and opportunities. So a guy like Britton Allen, if he's coming in early, he has a chance to move a leg up and possibly pass somebody in front of him. I think that's going to be what fall camp is all about. Those guys are going to be healthy. You're going to have the other guys back, but if you're battling, you want to be on that 2 deep. Obviously, so there's going to be a lot of battles there in the DBs to see who's going to be on the 2 deep and if somebody can surpass some of the guys that are there already.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook question from Willis who says, who do you guys think is going to take over Porter Gustin's spot?
Drake Jackson could. I mean, he is the one guy in this class I think is an immediate impact guy. Now, that's if they put him at that spot. Also, he's bulking up right now. He's already added 20 pounds. It usually takes guys a little bit of time to adjust to their body. So he's my guess for immediate impact guy outside of maybe Jude Wolfe if he surpasses a couple of those tight ends. Keely talked about him on our podcast. But the thing is, like the wide receivers, there's already guys there. That's the other spot where maybe somebody could jump in there immediately.
Offensive linemen aren't jumping in.
No. Keaton Slovis is not going to jump in the quarterback competition.
Ben Griffiths, the Australian punter.
Your punters, when
your
punters, you're one immediate impact guy. That's a bad recruiting class.
Did you guys hear that? And I tweeted out. So watching Tunnel Vision, watching Trojans live last night, another Facebook live kind of broadcast, but they don't do it on YouTube. I think they do it on Periscope, or do they do it? I don't know, whatever. But he had said, I think he said like you got a Drake Jackson coming in. I believe he said 256, and then is now 276, and I was like, well, that's like 20 pounds in like 5 weeks. And people were tweeting like, that can't even be healthy. And like, I don't know. Yeah. Without a strength coach, like you do have a strength coach there. It's just, maybe not the permanent one, but that was a little surprising to me, but maybe that's where they want them to. It seemed like they had more depth there than maybe you'd be better off with a 260 pound, guy that can come off the edge or something.
Yeah. I mean, we had him listed as a defensive end. So the thing is, in USC system, the defensive ends have to be pretty big. If he gets up to the size of Christian Rector, I could see him in a similar role as that, where he comes off the edge at times. You can slide him inside in pass rush situations. So he's a guy I think that can make an impact. But again, I'm a little bit cautious anytime someone adds a bunch of weight and changes their body or loses a bunch of weight, because it takes a little bit of time to adjust to that.
Yeah.
You're used to playing one way, and then suddenly, that speed rush off the edge isn't quite the same because you're a tick slower or whatever it may be. So I'm a little hesitant there. So just impact guys looking. I'm kind of curious to see what happens there. If you're looking at guys that are already on the roster, I think Hunter Echols and Kenai Mauga are the two most likely guys there. I think Hunter Echols, he was the most consistent pass rusher on the team last year. He didn't get a ton of chances, but he had a lot of pressures. When he was in there, that was another thing on the PFF based breakdown that we did. But I think that he's a guy that if he is in the playbook and focused, I think he has an opportunity to take over a starting spot as well. He has to make sure that to fend off those other guys, but he can easily lock down that spot too. I think he's a guy that can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, Willis, that's an important spot because production, when Porter went down, production from that spot just went way down. And Christian Rector still could be in the mix and stuff too, right?
I just don't know that they want to use him in that same role as that. So it just depends on how they want to use him. That's kind of the question mark there.
But they got to get production out of that spot because when Porter wasn't there, you weren't getting it.
Yeah. John Laub took a shot at me, and the cross, he's on Facebook. He took a shot at YouTube. He says, does my name have to be Jasper Smith to get a question in? No, John. You just have to ask better questions.
Keely's tough with these things.
You got to ask, but sometimes people have very, personality, like taking a shot at Helton specifically or taking a shot at Linton Swan.
Yeah.
I'm not going to entertain those questions unless there's actual meat to your questions.
Right.
But John
We're
says...
not here to insult,
people. Yeah, that's not what I do. John says, is Linton Swan just a celebrity AD at this point? What does he actually do?
The hire, I don't agree with. 3 football players in a row, I don't agree with. It's just not having any kind of athletic director experience, any administrative experience, anything like that. We were told he was brought in to be a big fundraiser, and because he's a former football player, Super Bowl champion, all that. Like I said, he was like a childhood idol of mine growing up in Western Pennsylvania. But I think the fans have turned on him, so I don't know. I don't see a lot of people, if he's making a phone call to get a donation, I'm not, a lot of the people we've talked to, I don't think would be doing it. So I'm not sure at this point. It seems like he came in because he was inexperienced to be like a wait and see sort of mode. But I don't think he's got out of the wait and see sort of mode. He's kind of still in that. And you have to be making some moves. Most people thought he should have made a move after last year. He didn't. We'll see. You're hoping that things can, for the new Coliseum, everything's going to work well. But there's a lot that's going to go into that. You don't want to have this new, refurnished building, just refurbished everything and have 35,000 people there for Fresno State. That's not what you want. So we'll see. I think he can. I think he's it's not like he's a dumb guy. I haven't agreed with a lot of decisions he's made so far, but I think he's got to make some moves. He's got to start acting more like an athletic director for a major program. I haven't seen much of that yet. Yeah.
The classic
Pretty much.
shotgun shrug.
The answer is pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what he actually does. He doesn't talk to the media. I know that.
He doesn't answer questions yeah. And it's weird. You had a guy like that. The thing I say is, Pat Hayden was, super successful. Like Lynn Swan, obviously Super Bowl champ, was a great, color commentator and sideline reporter and all that kind of stuff. These guys have had a lot of success, but it's been in the same kind of, a lot of it's been the same kind of world. And a lot of times you're sitting on a board, and you're sitting on a board because people knew you from, your success as being an athlete and all that stuff. And, you kind of grow up like that. How many times has someone told Pat Hayden or Lynn Swan, no, you can't do that. There's not, and you're going to get a lot of criticism when you're going to be an athletic director. It's a whole different game. And I saw it in Pat Hayden's face even when he announced Clay Helton as being the permanent head coach after beating UCLA, and everyone was questioning it and stuff. And he was just, it looked like he was don't you understand? I'm Pat Hayden. I just said something. You should all just say, that's great. That's the feeling I got from looking at it. And I'm not saying it's necessarily their fault, but that's, I don't think those guys have been told no a lot or have had to run into, they've had adversity on the field and there's different things. But man, it's outside of the football field, people are like coddling you. You see that with athletes all the time. You have an
The
entourage.
5-star treatment.
Yeah, and so now you're athletic. I mean, people are throwing a lot of darts at you, and I think that's new territory for these guys. Just my opinion, but
Yeah. There was a question. Oh, Mike Connolly says, how much do you think the fan base contributes to recruits not wanting to come to USC?
I mean, it's not a ton, but recruits hear everything. Especially, I mean, when a recruit goes on a visit to Nebraska, they see the fan base tweeting incessantly at them. They see that. They go
which
to
might not be a good thing, to be fair.
No, it depends on the recruit.
Right, yeah.
They go to the spring game at Nebraska and see 60,000 people there, or whatever, 80,000 people, and like, wow, you see how invested the fans are. But you also hear when you go to a USC Notre Dame game and you hear the student section break out in a Fire Helton chant, you hear that. And so you're looking at, do I want to go to school? Like, what's the stability there? If Helton's the thing I really like about this program, am I concerned about, one of the top things I like about the program being gone after a year or whatever it may be, the stability and stuff there. So you hear stuff when you go to games and, when you go on that official visit and when you're walking around campus and different things like that, they hear that stuff. But are all recruits going on the message board and seeing how negative the P can be at times? No, I don't think so. Occasionally you'll see a parent jump on there. Or, I've heard of some kids being incognito just to check and see what people think about them, and some of them use it as fuel. Are they gonna like me? Okay, I'll take that as a chip on my shoulder. But it's not the same as a fan. As a fan, you're totally invested in this one program. You're hearing everything about them. You're focused on what everyone says about Clay Helton or Lynn Swan or whoever you like or dislike. You hear every little bit. These players are being recruited. The best ones are being recruited by 30 different programs. So it's kind of hard to listen to every single thing about 30 different programs. So I think that there's definitely a discrepancy between fan and recruit, but they do still hear some stuff.
Yeah, and Mike, my favorite recruiting story. By the way, cute picture. I think probably your daughter on your Facebook thing, but look at the pictures.
We rate your profile pictures here.
I think it's cool when you have. That's a neat feature for me to have they get their picture up on there on the Tunnel Vision show. Favorite recruiting story. Gerard would love to tell it. As you remember Manti Te'o, a lot of people thought he was going to end up at USC from Hawaii. So this Hawaiian kid takes an official visit to South Bend, Indiana in the winter. It's snowing. Notre Dame blows. Can I say that on television? I guess I can.
I'm not sure.
It's your show.
It is my show. Notre Dame's not very good. It's snowing. They're losing to Navy. They lose to Navy. Students, while Manti Te'o was on the field, are throwing snowballs at the football team. They are so upset. And he did not go to USC. He went to Notre Dame. So if that's about as bad as it's going to get, I would assume. And it didn't really matter to Manti Te'o.
Part of the reason why he went to Notre Dame is he wanted to create his own path because a lot of Hawaiians come to USC. That was also part of the reason that Inoke Vamahi said that he wanted to go to Ohio State instead of USC.
So.
Mike says, that is my daughter. Thank you.
Oh.
There you go. We have a question from LDR on YouTube. He says, do you believe USC will have more physical practices? And what does situational mastery actually mean?
No, and I don't know.
No, until I see it. I don't, we've heard want to be a run first team. I think Jasper asked, do you believe what Helton said at the presser where USC would be a pass team with a physical run game? No, I'm not going to believe that until I see it.
What do you guys think situational mastery means? Just like,
I know what it means. It means being good in specific things. On third and long, do you get off the field?
Right.
On 3rd and 1, do you pick up a first down? That's what it means, but it's a common phrase being overused over and over by Helton to kind of describe a lot of things.
Yeah, you feel like, hey, we're doing 3rd down, 3rd and 1, so like we're mastering that situation, which, are you really mastering it? Like
he says that on Thursday practices. Thursdays are about situational mastery. That's you go over your fake punt, you go over your defense at this one look. If this one that you go over the Hail Marys, you're working on the specific details of certain situations that may happen in a game. You may not see a Hail Mary all season, but you got to work on that. Because then if it happens and you mess up, people are going to be like, why didn't you? What's this? Why didn't you not practice this all the time? It's one little detail, but you work on it all the time, at least once a week, and that's what it is. Thursdays are about situational mastery, focusing on those small details that may not necessarily come up, but could eventually come up during the season. That's what it means. Is it overused by Helton? Yes.
In my mind, it's kind of like business mumbo jumbo, like synergy. You know, like it sounds good, but what does that mean in practice? Like, what does that mean practically? You know, I don't fully know.
Paradigm. We used to, when I was an engineer, we actually, one of the Periscope questions was like, someone asked me an electrical engineering question or something. Yeah, when I was an engineer, you would have like, it was some kind of like meeting bingo or whatever, but it would be like, you know, paradigm and synergy and all these like buzzwords. It was buzzword bingo or something like that. And we could definitely do that with Clay Helton and some of the press conferences. You know, you could put up situational mastery or Gartner or, you know, by trade or any one of those things that he likes to say all the time. We could do that.
Let's see.
Jesse asked if the knock on Helton and his coaching staff was their failure to coach up 4- and 5-star talent. What can we possibly expect with 3-star kids whose talent alone won't get them by?
Do you listen to our show?
I'm
we already
trying to run
answered
the YouTube questions, and you just try to dip into YouTube and don't let me ask questions. So I didn't catch that you had already asked that one because I was trying to get all the rest of the YouTube questions.
To be fair,
Great
yes, it's a
job.
lot to be talking on the show, but actually trying to run the show and everything.
Yes.
For shotgun. No, for shotgun. I mean. Oh, for you too.
Or
Keely.
shotgun.
Is this staff focusing, and a little bit of variation, is this staff focusing on character more than star rankings that may bring more drama? If so, they really need to develop them. I think this is a development question about the 3 stars. That's what I was trying to get at. I was trying to get to that. If Keely would
Right.
just let me.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I
Trying to
yeah.
combine these into one.
We talked about it in the beginning of the show, and there was a thread about that, like on the peristyle, 4- and 5-star guys. That you want the 3-star guys because they're going to work harder and stuff. And I said, yeah, basically, the thing is, if you want to target those guys because you feel like they had better character or they were going to be harder workers or whatever it was, and you said, I'm not going to recruit Chris Steele, I'm going to go get Britton Allen or whoever it is. I'm going to get someone not ranked as high because I like him better for these reasons that might not be athletic or whatever it is. I think that's fine. Like, that's a strategy. That wasn't USC's strategies here. USC's strategy would still get the Chris Steeles of the world. They just missed on them, so they had to get the 3-star guys. So I wouldn't agree with that assessment because that wasn't the plan going in. The plan going in was still to get the highest ranked guys you could possibly get.
And Austin also said, are all the guys on the Patriots 5-star recruits? No, they get coached thoroughly and are developed a lot. It's a mindset philosophy change. Look, you need a class that all 5 stars, if you got the top 32 guys or you got the top 25 guys in your class, that's not going to be a good class. There's going to be way too many egos trying to get those guys. You're going to have guys transfer out because you're going to have guys that are already starting. If you get 25 guys, you're at USC and you get 25 guys or 2 and 3 stars, not going to be a good class. Not going to have the same talent. You need a mix in there. You need guys like Jordan Iosefa that can come in, that can be a 3-star, that can come in and contribute right away. Giuliano Falanico, the guy came all the way from American Samoa. That's basically at New Zealand. Came all the way over. And he didn't contribute much last year, but his first year, he was on special teams all the time. He was on almost every special teams. Jordan Iosefa started on special teams. He's worked his way into a starting position. You need those guys that come in with that little chip on their shoulder that will, that are going to go hard and going to fill spots on special teams and other things where some other guys may not be ready to contribute right away.
Yeah.
Isaac Taylor-Stewart, 4 to 5-star, depending on the rating. I just didn't think he was going to be able to come in. He needed to develop a little bit more, and he didn't contribute much on special teams. He played a little bit, almost got a punt block in the first game, but so he got injured and he sat out the rest of the year. You got to have a combination of those two to create a really good recruiting class.
Yeah.
Even Nick Saban goes and gets 3-star guys like the running back Jacobs was a 3-star guy out of Tulsa. They loved him. I watched him this year and was like, this guy's amazing. How in the world was he only 3 stars? We got to talk to our Midwest analyst or something. But you had to have a combination. That guy plays with not a chip, but like a mountain on his shoulder. He just, the way he runs is fierce. You got to find guys like that. Doesn't have the same, the exact attributes of a Najee Harris, who is, a perfect physical specimen for a running back. But if you run hard and you break that extra tackle, you become a good player.
Yeah.
So you got to find that combo of those two.
And I think the DNA of whatever program is different. And Boise State does really well with a bunch of 3-star guys, and they'll win 10 games a year. It's like if you put a bunch of 5-stars there, I don't know how well it would work. We saw Justin Wilcox. He's been a great defensive coordinator wherever he was, except USC, where he had the most talent. Look at Clemson; they recruit more 3-star guys. They recruit differently, and they're very successful. But that's their philosophy, and they have the coaches to develop. They evaluate really well, they develop really well, and they can make a juggernaut. Alabama and USC are more similar. Like they recruit just the cream of the crop, and you will get other guys too. USC's DNA has been to recruit the cream of the crop. That's how they've been successful. This isn't a change in philosophy. This is just failing at the current philosophy. So it's not like that's what we're trying to get across here. It sucks, but it's just they've missed on a lot of the guys. It's not like they switched and said we're going to get a bunch of 3-star guys. They just missed on the other guys, so they had to get the 3-star guys.
We are past the top of the hour, so if we want to get some rapid fire questions in after this question, Eric says, what do you guys know about the character of this recruiting class? Anything special?
From the guys I've talked to, they all like. There's no one in the class. I'm like, can't believe USC got this guy. Now I got to talk to him for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
No, everyone seems fine. A lot of these kids we haven't talked to a ton because they were the backup or the third option, and we were filming and talking to Chris Steele and Brew McCoy, and those are the guys that didn't come. So, so it's going to be a little bit of an introduction period during spring and fall camp for us too.
Just in the Polynesian Bowl, Mananoa Tefono, he was really great. So a guy from Hawaii, you don't get to talk to him much. He was great. Got him on camera. Jason Rodriguez, we talked to him a lot. Gino Quinones, we really never got to talk to him much. He's all excited. He was at USC, flew back for the so there was USC. Usually the guys you're talking to, they're great speakers. They're just really good on camera. I mean, it's hard to find guys that are just bad at that stuff. I don't see a lot of really bad character guys in the class. But even when they get 4- and 5-star guys, it happens sometimes. But there were some guys that got kicked off that, like, when we talked to them, they seemed like the nicest guys in the world. And, you wouldn't, we were like, oh, that's a bad apple or anything, But at least from the surface, we didn't see it.
Ryan loved Jabari Ruffin.
I love Jabari Ruffin. I mean,
came on the show to do his
he did it like
commitment.
I think he did it like on our live show, our early version of a live show. He committed like we did at his school. Yeah.
TBT. Mr. CD84. That's how I'm gonna say your name. He says, "Who is the best recruit in this current class?"
I'm taking Drake Jackson.
Kyle Ford, please. What do you think?
I feel like
you could have the guys coming off the ACL surgery. I will take the guy that was a beast.
You're talking about best to recruit, but
Drake Jackson, I think, is the easy choice. I feel like people are sleeping on Drake London.
Yeah, I like Drake London.
You do just because you made a cool highlight video,
which I should play right now.
Play it up there.
Yeah, this is Drake London, so you guys can watch him. Look at that! I edited that.
Yeah, I really like Drake London's size. I mean, he goes up and gets the ball really well. I think that's something Kyle Ford does. Kyle Ford uses his body really well at the same time. I think those are the two guys, if healthy, that could have an impact this upcoming season on the. Oh, I see the highlight now. Nice.
Yeah, isn't it nice?
That could make an impact at that wide receiver position and getting the rotation, even though you've got some guys in front of them that are going to be playing a lot that you expect with Tyler Vaughn, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even Devin Williams as well. So we'll see. The wide receiver position is kind of in flux right now because there's guys in the portal, but that doesn't mean they got to leave. Just means that they have expressed their interest in leaving. So we'll see if any of those guys do return, if any of those guys are at spring practice. Usually that's not how it works, but you never know. There have been a couple guys that have come back apparently that have entered the portal and returned to their school. Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out there in that regard.
Should we rapid fire for some?
Yeah, Shotgun. Do you have any rapid fire that you can see?
Brandon Jones. Any word on transfers? Not really. We're still waiting.
Trayvon Sidney just confirmed on Twitter right as we started that he is transferring.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's one of them that is gone.
Yeah, he didn't say where though, but he
just said he's going to be a grad transfer.
He probably heard because I was talking about he might come back. There's a potential, but he would have been good. Like I think he would have done well in the slot in the air raid. So, but wish him the best wherever. He's another great kid, so wish him the best.
Yeah.
For the 2020 recruiting class here in SoCal, is USC in the lead for any of the top talent out there, or will it end up being like this year where all the top guys go elsewhere? This is what I was ruffling on my back for because I already wrote this list out. Justin Flo's the number 3 overall recruit. So, yes, USC's in that one. That's a guy that you can't let leave. DJ Ualele looks like the USC will get Bryce Young instead of DJ.
So Bryce Young is one of the highest.
Bryce Young is 28th. I'll get to him. Elias Ricks at 9. USC was thought to be the leader there. He's committed to LSU. We'll see with the new defensive backs coach that's going to be recruiting him more.
That would be big if you could
harder.
Switch him.
So Kendall Milton from Fresno. Was Buchanan in Fresno? Is right.
Yeah.
Top running back.
is it Bakerfield? It's
Clovis.
up there.
Clovis.
Is it Clovis? Okay.
I think that's where he's at. But he's the top running back, maybe in this class, top running back in California. USC has been in contact with him for the last 3 years, I want to say, 2 or 3 years. He's been to multiple games at USC. They're going to be in the mix for that one as well. We'll see what Mike Jinks does with that position as well. Johnny Wilson, number 18 overall in the class. He is, he's a USC probably lean right now. USC's in that mix of that one. Down the list in the 50s, Clark Phillips III from La Habra, Mr. Pick 6. USC will be in that one. Gary Bryant, the 4-star receiver from Centennial. Darion Green Warren, who's an Oklahoma commit right now at Modern Day, the cornerback. I think they'll be in that one as well. John Humphreys, wide receiver from Corona Del Mar, who we love every time we see him.
He's really good.
He dominates somebody. Jay Navarrete is another guy that's at Norco as a wide receiver. And then LV Bunkley Shelton at Sarah. Maybe USC will be in that one. Brandon Jones. USC has been talking to him since he was a freshman. Chris Hudson, former USC commit. We'll see if they get back in that. And then Chad Johnson. Also, those are the top 200. Those are all kids from SoCal. So there's 18 guys in the top 200 right now that are from SoCal. I think USC will be in the mix for at least half of them.
Yeah.
We had multiple questions about our schedule going forward. Next Thursday is Valentine's Day.
Oh, we probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Have a date with Tunnel Vision.
Why not? Jasper can bring his girlfriend, apparently, right?
Whoever he had a date with at that one point.
We'll figure that out. Maybe we move it to Wednesday or something, or we'll have to talk with the team and see.
Follow us on Twitter, and then you'll get the latest information.
Yeah.
On that one.
Especially me. Follow me.
I'll put up our
or
Twitter
Shaka.
names again.
Yeah. Shaka wants to get more followers than Keely. So
Ryan just likes to start things.
I don't care. Anyways, a couple more rapid fire. Any word on UCLA transfer Jalen Phillips? Nothing new there. Miami still looks like a potential spot for him.
They've got a lot of transfers at Miami.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like the sanctions are still taking their toll on the program? I would say no.
No.
I think it's the 5-7 record is taking its toll. More.
Bad administrative decisions are taking a
Could
toll.
you argue that the compliance mindset that came from sanctions?
It's hurting us because we can't talk to the recruits on the field or on campus, where at other places they facilitate interviews and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, you could argue like the mindset around Heritage Hall and the McKay Center, it changed with the sanctions, and that's to me self-inflicted. Like, you don't have to act like that. Other schools aren't, and
yeah, I think they get away with it fine. Who's the new strength and conditioning coach? Talked about that earlier. There's been no decision. Thump Belton is running the program right now from that spot. Do you think Helton wants to go air raid because he knows his O-line is soft and can't run the ball? No, I think it's just that offense is what the game is evolving into, and Graham Harrell's offense has been really good.
But I'm not convinced that he came up and said, "Oh, I want to go air raid." It basically was Kingsbury was available, contacted them, and that sort of fell in your lap. And then it became like you had to do something similar to that because you had hired all the other assistant coaches already, so you couldn't really. You needed to bring in another offensive coordinator, quarterback coach sort of thing. So I think it just kind of worked out. I don't think he woke up one day and said, "We're going to switch to the air raid." That's just my feeling. I don't know. Do you guys feel
No,
differently?
I don't think so. I think that was the best available offense out there at the time. Josh asked, do you guys agree that Helton is a really bad liar in explaining the departure of Brew McCoy? He said, it's funny how Shotgun tweeted personnel was the reason. I admit it was a typo. It was supposed to be personal. I try to explain that in a later tweet. But I guess it is kind of funny.
Difference.
I was trying to listen and type at the same time, and I glanced. I always glance to copy it, and I saw personal in my mind instead of personnel. But do I think he's lying about it? I think personal. When people are like, I know a couple people have been like, he said that about Kerry Angeline and Yakili Ross too, and he's just lying about it. I don't think that's a lie. It is personal.
Yeah.
I think personnel is also part of the reason why that is personal, because the personnel is not what I expected or what it may have been. So it's personal that I don't think this team's going to win as much.
Yeah, I don't think he's lying. I don't think he's not telling you everything he knows about it, but
I'm not saying he loved his time at USC.
And Brew might have lied to him, whatever, who knows what, But I don't think he told us everything he said, but you're not supposed to. Like, that's not something you would expect.
The legendary Lurch Logan says, how good is incoming tight end recruit Jude Wolf?
I think he's a guy that you can split out and he can catch passes. I think it was underutilized in that Bosco offense, even though they had partly because they had so many weapons. But he's a guy that could come in and battle with those other guys and potentially get some opportunities.
Yeah.
Is Solo back fully healthy? I believe so. We haven't got confirmation on that, but he was doing running and stuff at the end of the season, so I think he'll be fine. How does Raymond Scott fit moving forward? I think he's an inside linebacker. He's a tackling machine when he's in games, and he's also going to be on special teams almost all the time. So I think he's a guy.
He caught people's eye at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a guy he's smaller and he's a 4-star guy. He's not the 5-star guy that has the physical attributes you may look for at that position, but he's one of those guys like I was talking about with the 3 stars that he's a playmaker. You get him in there and he's going to make plays. So I think that he's a guy that you bring in the recruiting class instead of going, well, he's only 5'9" or 5'10" or whatever he is. We need a guy that's 6'2", like Tuliapupu and Naya Tiote. Yeah. So I think that's how you kind of got to mix a class. You look for playmakers that don't really fit the mold of what you want. USC wants length from their DBs. They want guys that are 6'2" at cornerback. But if a guy like Max Williams makes plays all the time, go get Max Williams. That's what they did in this class. So, and sometimes you don't have the option. Sometimes you go out and get the best player regardless.
Tony on Facebook says, is the Inland Empire pipeline stronger than ever?
I mean, 3 from Centennial is pretty strong.
I don't think any pipeline right now is as strong as it's been in previous years. I think the fact that they went out and got some guys from Centennial is great because that's a program that puts out guys every single year. And I think Chris said it was the last guy they got was Vianney Talamavayo.
Oh, okay.
From Centennial. So,
and he's now a graduate assistant. So
indeed.
maybe that helped.
Someone asked about the graduate assistants, if I can find it here. Do you think USC should employ more GAs that are QBs to learn Graham Harrell's system when he inevitably gets poached to keep the system intact instead of ex-defensive players? I think they should hire more everything.
Yeah. You can only have 2 GAs, right? Did they change the rule? Is it?
I think it's 2 GAs. But you should hire more support staff and more analysts and everything else. Those are guys, if you're at Alabama, your analysts are guys like Butch Jones. Yeah. Or he was an intern or something. He had a weird title. But former coach of a rival, if you want to count
head
Tennessee
coach,
Tennessee is anybody's rival right now.
It's not going to like that.
But, you take him from being your rival to being an intern on your team. Obviously, that is a positive because now you have all the inside information about everybody that you're playing against on that team and all the information they had from when he was coaching against other teams. I mean,
yeah, but I don't think you're going to there's no insurance having a quarterback GA that Graham Harrell would leave. There's no, that's not, that's like buying a 20-cent insurance policy on $1 million home. It doesn't matter. That's a GA quarterback, that, it's not going to help you all that much. And this is an all-in year. So I don't think anything else matters. You have to make this year be good. You have to win this year. I don't think you can worry about if Graham Harrell leaves because they scored 50 points a game. You just have to be happy that you survived this year.
I would agree. Well, we have a question on Facebook from Panufu. I don't know. Everyone wanted to get me to say his name. But he says, does USC scout East Coast athletes?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they went out and got some guys from the East Coast.
Yeah. But it's just harder to recruit when you're 5-7 nationally.
It's anytime you are struggling as a program, it makes it that much harder to talk someone into flying across the country because now mom and dad can't come to every game if they want to or whatever it may be. So I think that it's much more difficult there. You can't recruit nationally until you're winning. It's very difficult otherwise, unless you're at Navy, Army, or maybe Notre Dame. Those are about the only ones that recruit nationally, regardless if they're winning or not.
Stanford will too, I think, because that's just what they do. But
they have to because of their academic rigors. That's not desire. I think that's more necessity. Have we ever had any 2-star players be impactful? I would think of a guy like Morgan Breslin. I don't think he was rated at all. I think it's more you get guys that aren't rated.
Yeah, so special teams guys usually don't get high ratings, and sometimes JC guys don't.
Yeah, so I think.
But Breslin might have been a 3 or even a 4-star.
Some guy named Clay Matthews, was he rated at all?
He was. No, he was. I think he was a 2-star or something.
There we go. That's one. I win. Boop. Count it. What percentage of the USC fan base would be rooting for Fresno?
Oh man.
I mean, they're going to bring 20. So I used to cover Fresno State a while back, and their fans love it. I mean, that's what they got there. The local TV stations. I would go when I would go up to cover Fresno State. They would have me on TV because oh, you're covering the team. That's what they do. We cover Fresno State football or baseball. I mean, they won a national championship like 10 years ago, I think, in baseball.
2008.
2008. But they're going to bring 20,000 fans to the Coliseum. So you might see a pretty good attendance for that game just because a lot of Fresno fans are coming. I don't think they're going to be rooting for Fresno State, but at some point, they just want – a lot of them just want Clay Helton gone, as you know. But I don't know if they're going to be actively rooting for like an opponent like Fresno State. I wouldn't think, but who knows?
The read option on YouTube says, with the amount of skilled position players SC has recruited over the years, is the move to the air raid way past due?
I don't think it's way past due. I think it's just that USC needed an offensive system that was consistent and that could build upon itself. It didn't matter that it's air raid. You could have a pro-style offense and do the same things. It's just, they need to take advantage of the playmakers they have. They need to be able to have an offense that builds upon itself and makes adjustments in games. That was the biggest thing. They could have the gumbo offense last year, and if they made some adjustments in games, that they still would have scored more points. Look at the points they scored when Sam Darnold was here. And a lot of that was his playmaking ability himself and making plays after the initial play breaks down, but they still put up plenty of yards and points that year. So it's not like the system will determine how their athletes can be best used. They just got to actually use them and put them in positions for them to succeed.
Yeah. I didn't care. I just wanted someone else to bring in an outside offensive system. That's all I thought was important. So air raid, whatever.
Agreed. Alrighty. Anything else?
Thoughts on Brew McCoy being able to play in 2019, and which way will the NCAA and USC decide? It's not USC's decision. USC can say, oh, we let him go or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The NCAA has the final say in whether he plays or not.
Yeah.
And if I'm the NCAA, I would tell him no. Like, you can't have players coming in and leaving to enrolling and 2 weeks later leaving and still allowing them to play. I just don't think that because he's going to have to apply for a waiver, and I just don't think there's any appeal that he can make to say, well, I thought I was going, and Cliff Kingsbury didn't end up there, so I should be able to play at this other school. Like, I don't think that's something the NCAA is going to allow to happen.
No, but according to Tom Herman, I guess he spoke today a little bit about it. It sounded like he was optimistic, or he thought he was going to be eligible. But I think he would just say that. I don't think he knows anything because he's got to appeal to the NCAA. By Clay Helton releasing him, it allowed him to appeal to the NCAA. But yeah, I agree with Shotgun. My gut is it doesn't happen, but it's the NCAA, so anything.
You never know. True. If it's the same, if he went to Texas first and ended up at USC, I would say the same thing. So yeah. I just don't see how the NCAA decides. Well, you were there for 2 weeks and you decided to change your mind. We're going to allow it. Doesn't seem consistent with anything they've done in the past, which means he probably has a good chance because that's the NCAA for you.
Hitman on Periscope, would you say that player development hasn't happened because of our strength and conditioning coach?
It's been a factor of it.
Yeah, but I think it's really...
I don't think it's necessarily the coach, but the fact that they have not developed.
That's like physical development, but I think as far as skill on the field too, I think there have been some lacking. Some players have, you've seen Uchenna Nwosu grow, got bigger, played way better, ends up being a second-round draft pick. But he was more of the exception, I think, than kind of the rule.
3-star guy.
3-star guy.
Esteban says, will Stephen Carr finally have a starting spot?
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy.
And which Clay Helton says he's been full participant in all workouts. So it's not just health, but it's having that burst back. He didn't have the same burst when he came back last year.
Agreed. Alrighty. I think that's going to wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
For this week's edition of Tunnel Vision. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Make sure to look at our Twitter stream so we figure out what day we will be streaming since it is Valentine's Thursday. We'll figure that out. But thanks so much for watching, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Peace.